Coming up on the Paper Talk today, we'll be looking at INEOS. What are their plans? They've been meeting with the Manchester United Supporters Trust. It looks like there's been discussions about potentially the fans being involved in the planning of the new stadium, even with a slight nod towards fans getting involved in the ownership of the club. That might be a little bit overly ambitious, but it's what a lot of people want to see. However, is it going to happen? I don't know, but we'll get into that anyway. There's some stories there. Plus, Manchester United have a new transfer strategy. United having a transfer strategy at all seems a little bit new to me, because it seems like we just used to go out and sign whoever we could get our hands on and spend as much money as possible and then stop spending money in the next window. It doesn't seem to make any sense. However, there is a new strategy under INEOS. There's a couple of stories doing the rounds on that front as well. Also looking at potential targets. A couple of players that we've been heavily linked with. We'll get into that one too. And a player coming back into the team, and another player coming back, another ex-player coming back to do his coaching badges. So loads of stories to get through. Just before we get into all that though, there's also been a story about VAR. It looks like VAR could be getting a bit of a revamp. Tony Scholes, who's like the chief football officer from the Premier League and who looks at VAR, has been given a statement, has been looking at it and says they are going to change VAR. They're not happy with it, which is music to my ears, because I am sick to the back teeth of VAR. I don't want to be that old guy who goes on moaning all the time and says, oh, VAR's ruining football. But I think it is, and I think you see it when we have games where there's no VAR. The game flows better, it's much more enjoyable. Anyway, I need to stop ranting and we need to start talking about some stories, so let's get into it. Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford and the weather is absolutely wonderful. Get your barbecues out. It's never been sunnier or drier. We'll get straight into it. Quite a lot of stories to go through. Obviously, a lot centres around INEOS' takeover of Manchester United. Football Insider saying that could be done as early as next week. Ratified, done, 25%, or I think it's just over 25%. It's going to Sir Jim Ratcliffe in INEOS. We know that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been here at the ground for the Munich Memorial, but he's been at Carrington as well. We hear there's already been moves and sort of plans put in place. We spoke extensively yesterday about the new plans for a stadium here, potentially a new stadium, but on the same site. We've had a bit of a debate on the channel. By all means, get involved, and while you're doing that, make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. Latest news sort of focuses a little bit more on transfers and strategy. There's a piece, I think, in the Eye that says that there's going to be a new strategy when it comes to transfers at Manchester United, based more on data. We're looking harder and faster and more intensely at the data to sort of make decisions around transfers that way, rather than vibes. So it seems to be the sort of the order of the day with some of our transfers. Let's just go out and get the most expensive player available, or let's just go out and get a player who's going to flog some shirts. That sort of era at Manchester United, if you can call it that, seems to be coming to an end now. We spoke yesterday, me and Joe on Paddock Live, about how they're also going to be looking at players' contracts and potentially bringing in players, not exclusively, but sometimes, who are coming towards the end of their deal, so you can get them for a bit cheaper. Players like Joshua Kimmich, for example, was one of the players linked, because I think he's coming to the end of his deal. So there's a new sort of ethos, if you can say that. Ethos by INEOS, there you go, at the club now. Two players that could be coming to Manchester United. The Eye also mentions this. Jarrad Branthwaite from Everton, and also Michael Olise from Crystal Palace. We've been linked heavily with both of those players, and it looks like they could be heading to Old Trafford in the summer. Now, another player who could be coming to Old Trafford in the summer is Jadon Sancho coming back to Old Trafford. There's a report in the Manchester Evening News saying that INEOS, or the club, I should say, INEOS, the club, whatever you want to term it, could be willing to bring Jadon Sancho back to the club if, and it's a big if, Erik ten Hag is sacked or leaves the club. Obviously, Erik ten Hag and Jadon Sancho have had their issues. They fell out, more or less. That's why Jadon Sancho ended up going back to Dortmund. Now, according to the Manchester Evening News, and I think this again is via Football Insider, there could be moves to bring Jadon Sancho back to the club if Erik ten Hag is no longer the manager. Now, that kind of makes sense. We've had this story before. I don't think it's necessarily a revelation, but there is still some doubts as to whether the club are going to be willing to bring Jadon Sancho back, even if Erik ten Hag isn't here, because of what's going on, because of the fact you had this public fallout, because of the way Jadon Sancho conducted himself, his unwillingness to apologise, and also the fact that since he arrived, he hasn't exactly set the world alight anyway. Even if you put aside the incident with what happened with Erik ten Hag, I don't think we've seen anywhere near the best of Jadon Sancho since he arrived at Manchester United. So there might even be a look at that and think, hang on a minute, so is it worth all this aggro for a player that hasn't really done much at the club, fell out with the previous manager, and also, if we were to sell him, we could probably get a few quid for him, because we know that Jadon Sancho cost a lot of money. I think it's £73 million. We could still recoup some of that. I think his star is shining brightly enough for you to recoup some of that money, not the full 73 million, obviously. So there's lots of different ways to look at it, but the latest story is that he could still have a future at Manchester United. Again, get involved in the chat in the comments. Let me know what you think about that one. Do you think much has changed? Do you want to see him back at Old Trafford? Do you blame Erik ten Hag for that? I know we've been over this a million times, but you might want to get over it. Get into it one more time. Just on the takeover as well with INEOS and some of the plans for the stadium, there's a piece in the Telegraph by James Ducker. Now he's saying, and I think he spoke to Duncan Drasdo from Manchester United Supporters Trust, just about this prospect of potentially fans having a say in the new stadium, and it was almost sort of gearing towards looking at a fan ownership model, and maybe fans could have a say and maybe own a bit of the club or whatever. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with having that ambition and of wanting to see some form of fan ownership. I know that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been making the right noises. He has spoke to fan groups. He has obviously been here more than the Glazers ever have. He was here at the Munich Memorial, like I mentioned earlier. These are easy wins, I'll be honest with you, but they're easy wins the Glazers never did. When did the Glazers ever meet with the fans? When did the Glazers ever seem to care about the history of the club at 10 Munich Memorials? None that I can remember anyway. I think one of the Glazers has been here about once in the past 3 years, which says it all. We've seen more from Sir Jim Ratcliffe in the past few weeks than we've seen from the Glazer family over several years. It's an absolute joke. But we'll have to wait and see. Like, the proof is in the pudding and all the rest of it. However, I've been impressed so far with what I've seen, and at least he's acting like someone who gives a toss about Manchester United Football Club, which is far more than we saw from the Glazer family, because they didn't, and they don't. Another story doing the rounds as well is about Robin van Persie is back at Carrington. No, he isn't the answer to our striker problems, although there's some of you that may say he'd be a pretty decent backup to Rasmus Højlund. He's doing his coaching badges, so he's been invited by Erik ten Hag to come and do his coaching badges, or part of his coaching badges, at Carrington. It's nothing new, this. It happens quite a lot. I remember speaking to Chucky, Brian McClare, and he said he came back to Carrington on the invite from Sir Alex Ferguson when he was doing his UEFA coaching badges, and it seems it's the same now. Robin van Persie, good to see him back though. Nice pictures from him at the training ground. Absolutely love Robin van Persie. It pains me, it still pains me that he's from the era, it was the last era where we won a title. We've not won a title since Robin van Persie left, since before Robin van Persie left. But yeah, good to see him back at Carrington, and I wish him well. Hope he gets his coaching badges, does really well, and who knows, maybe there's a future Manchester United manager there on the horizon. Listen, I'm going to wrap it up there. Make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. We've got loads more videos coming up, more content coming up on the channel. Later on today, it's going to be Off the Bar. I think it's going to be myself, Joe Smith and Stephen Howson, so you can go and check that out. That'll be up later. Also, you've got Howson versus. He was firing a few shots, wasn't he, on his Howson versus video. That's already up on the channel. Go and have a look at that, and go and check out Paddock Live from last night if you want to see me and Joe rambling on and some questionable puns from the likes of producer Ethan Nolly. Anyway, make sure you're hitting subscribe. I'm Jay Motty. This has been the Paper Talk outside a pretty wet Old Trafford. Thanks for watching.